Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on Arrow Season 8, aka the final season. Now, Arrow is back this week from its 1 week break. We're back in a couple of days with episode 5. Episode 5, yes. Otherwise entitled Prognost, where we're heading to Russia and some interesting stuff is going to happen. Now, I'm interested to see what happens at the end of that episode, because I think it's going to be one of those big not like mic drops to us, the audience, but at least the characters, especially around like Lila and stuff like that. I think a lot of the Harbinger stuff might be revealed, or at least heavily hinted towards Oliver, at least that Lila is working with the Monitor and all that. So I'm interested to see how all of that plays out and where it leads into in the next handful of episodes before Crisis, because after this, there's only 2 more episodes until Crisis, which is pretty insane. That's how fast the end of Arrow is actually coming. Now, speaking of the end of Arrow, Arrow has now officially wrapped filming. They're done. They finished a couple of days ago. I obviously brought this up a couple of days ago, but there was like an extra thing that they filmed the day after, which I think I might have hinted to in that video. Now, the last thing that was actually filmed was Mia and William at the statue of Oliver. Obviously, I'm sure most of you have already seen that. But apparently, according to Mark Guggenheim, who is a consultant producer on Arrow, and I think is going to be a consultant producer on the spin-off, said these pickups, this shooting were pickups for episode 9, which is of course the backdoor pilot spin-off episode sort of thing. So maybe the statue wasn't ready in time for when they were filming that episode, or they just wanted to do the 2 scenes back to back over 2 days. So one of the scenes with the statue is of course for the finale episode. Or is it for Crisis? Maybe it's for Crisis. It's sort of confusing the way you put it, because the spin-off episode is episode 9, but then the other scene where had everyone there watching the statue is for episode 10, the finale. So what episode do we see the statue first? Or were they literally filming a scene for that spin-off show, which won't start filming properly for another, I guess, 4 or 5 months? And then they're going to segment it in there. It's sort of confusing, because I'm going to assume this statue does go back to Warner Brothers Studios in Los Angeles, to like the archives. I would be very surprised if it stayed in Vancouver where they film the shows, but I don't know how they work it around, or they might have to use the statue in the future, so they might keep it there. I don't know what they're going to do with it. Now, there was another thing which hints at the future stuff, but I'll let you go to Canadagraph's blog to read all the details and photos there, because there's like a special Oliver Queen memorial thing as well, which you can go check out his blog to see the rest of that and all the photos. So yeah, that will be linked in the description down below. But along with the finishing of the filming, if that's English, of Arrow, they also had their wrap party, their final wrap party ever. Usually they just do this at the end of the seasons, but this is of course the end of the series. So this was the last one they'll ever do. Now, were there any surprise turnouts? Because that's what you sometimes get. You might get a turnout to this, wrap party, and then that character might be in the finale or an episode towards the end, and that's why they're there. But for the most part, there was no real surprises. Colin Donnell, who of course plays Tommy Merlin, was there, but we know he's in the finale. Like, he was seen filming the finale, so that's not too much of a surprise there. So yeah, outside of this, there was no real surprise appearances outside of the actress Elena Huffman. If you watch Smallville, you would recognize her. She actually played the Black Canary on Smallville. So I don't know if that hints at her being in Smallville, her being in Crisis as her Black Canary, but it's important to note that I think she's friends with Rick Gonzalez, who plays Renee, and also she lives in Vancouver, so that might be why she turned up. But speaking of Crisis and the spin-off in general, Mark Guggenheim actually replied to a tweet. So someone was basically, or essentially asking about what's the go with at least like Katie Cassidy or just Laurel in Crisis, whether she's going to be in there, because there'd been a lot of set photos with certain actors and actresses in Crisis, and even just behind the scenes stuff that the certain actors posted themselves. But I don't think anything had really been posted about Katie Cassidy. She had said she was in Crisis, like I think might have tweeted out or like Instagram that she was filming Crisis, but there was no behind the scenes or set photos of her, on set. Now, Mark Guggenheim did confirm that Earth-1 Laurel is in Crisis and that the Earth-2 is in the spin-off, but does that mean the Earth-2 one isn't in Crisis either? That's a bit odd. If anything, you'd think Earth-2 would be in Crisis as well, and then Earth-1 Laurel might play in some way, shape or form there, as well. So maybe he's just written the tweet in a very confusing way, because I'd expect Earth-2 Laurel in the spin-off, in the Crisis, unless she dies or something like that. I don't know, unless she goes away back to the future. I don't know. Well, she wasn't from the future. I don't know. It's a bit confusing, that one. But in regards to Earth-1 Laurel and Crisis, I'd expect this to be like one scene, And I think it might be that scene that we've sort of been talking about on the channel for a bit, which is like when whatever happens to Oliver, he might see like the dead people from his past. So Laurel, Tommy, his mother, his father, and everyone like that. So I think that's probably what's going to happen there with Earth-1 Laurel, because unless it's time travel, obviously time travel has to be put out there. They could literally time travel to a point where she was alive, so keep that in mind. But I think that would be a more emotional scene if it was something where Oliver saw the dead people from his past and maybe they give him like a motivational message or just a nice moment there. I think that's probably what's going to happen, or at least that's what I would like to see happen. But some promo images for episode 6 for this season came out, and this episode is otherwise entitled Reset, so you can make of that what you will. We went over the synopsis for this in my last hour video. Now, I'll just scroll through the promo images now. Now, obviously, Quentin Lance is back now. There's been a lot of talk about how he comes back. Now, it needs to be put out there and made clear. They have said that there's no multiverse travel for the rest of the season. Episode 1 was the only one until Crisis. Now, obviously, people from the multiverse can come to Earth-1, but us, the audience, and like Oliver and stuff, won't travel to like Earth 36 or something like that. We're not going to see that happen. So obviously one of the options is that a multiversal version of Quentin Lance comes to Earth-1, or is brought to Earth-1 at least. I think that's probably the slim offering, like that's a slim chance of happening. I think the most likely option is that Team Arrow actually time travel. That's probably the most likely option. It sort of looks a bit like season 5 stuff with like Oliver being male. Like there's a shot in particular of Oliver and Renee in like, you know, town hall, like a mayoral sort of setting. Obviously they had the whole thing with like Renee running for mayor, so maybe this could be like a function for that. But if like Quentin is there, you'd expect time travel, so maybe they might be going back to like a season 5 sort of setting. But the synopsis does refer that Oliver finds himself facing a life or death situation that seems very familiar. And the promo images do sort of show like an external setup for SCPD, or Star City Police Department. Important to note, it says Star City, not Starling, so I'm not going that far back, to season 3 I think it was. So it might be something around maybe like the season 4 finale, maybe? Like maybe Damien Dark shows up. Have to wait and see. Like it could be Damien Dark oriented. Like he did film Legends this season, so there's always the off chance that he could actually appear in Arrow this season. Just keep that in mind, because he did film a couple of episodes, at least one episode, for Legends of Tomorrow. So you never know, and it could get a surprise Damien Dark appearance. But I'm interested to see how they make this work, because it seems it's time travel with Quentin, but then also other things make it seem like it might be a continuation of present day from where we were in the previous episode. So it's a bit confusing. Now, the synopsis for episode 7, the last episode before Crisis, this episode is called Purgatory, and as we know, that is Lian Yu in Mandarin. So that's where we're returning to, but here is the synopsis for it. Oliver's mission takes him to Lian Yu, where he tries to ignore the repercussions of the looming crisis until he receives help from an old friend. Meanwhile, a united Team Arrow faces a recognizable villain. Now, Yao Fei's back. Yao Fei is awesome. He's the old friend. That's awesome. Yao Fei, miss that guy. What a character. But he's back in this episode now. Does this further highlight that we're time traveling like in episode 6, or we're just time traveling even more? Because for those that need a reminder, Yao Fei is dead. So that was a big moment in season 1. Now, when they were filming this episode, it is Oliver and Leanne. I was going to say, it is Oliver and Laurel, not Oliver and Lian Yu. It is Oliver and Laurel here on Lian Yu. But if you did see the teaser trailers that came out for Crisis, I guess 2 days from now, or 2 days since today, in the past, if that's English, you did see Oliver and Mia looking to be picked up on Lian Yu by Harbinger. So maybe Mia is there as well, or maybe she gets there eventually. Because I think when they were filming this episode, it was just Oliver and Laurel. They were on set. Or at least they were in a scene together with Brian Mann, who plays Yao Fei. So we might end this episode off with Mia showing up here, or maybe like the Crisis teaser also shows us, maybe Harbinger shows up at the end of the episode and that leads into Crisis. That's like the Crisis teaser. Gonna be interesting to see, but yeah, Mia somehow shows up on Lian Yu before episode 8. Now, I guess another big question is, because Yao Fei showing up, is will Shadow show up in Lian Yu? It's unlikely, but it would be cool. I think people wanted to see Shadow back for a while. I'm sure there will be a reference or two to her. I'd be shocked if there isn't a reference to Shadow. But we'll have to wait and see. But I'd be surprised if Selena Jade, who played Shadow, does come back. In regards to who the recognizable villain is that United Team Arrow does face, seeing we are having a season 1 sort of theme with Oliver and Lian Yu, maybe we have like a season 1 threat for Oliver to face, or for Team Arrow to face, maybe like Count Vertigo or something like that. like a throwback villain. Maybe Adam Hunt shows up. Who knows who the hell's going to show up? It might have like a throwback sort of recognizable villain there, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there. I don't know who they could do. Maybe it's Damien Dark. I don't know. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is actually Oliver's death in Crisis. Now, obviously, as I referenced before, all those teaser trailers came out, and there was a shot of, it's like Oliver on the ground. He sort of looks like he's in pain, and you can see that, you can see like Barry's arm. He's like leaning over Oliver. Now, I saw so many people losing their minds over this shot. Like, oh my God, this is where Oliver dies. Oh my God, they've just showed it in the Crisis trailer. I'm like, I think I've said this. I know I've said this. I don't think I mentioned it for a while, though. I think I mentioned it towards the end of last season. But Oliver's death is definitely going to be one of those things that we are waiting for, and the show knows we're waiting for it, and they will intentionally make it out multiple times that certain scenes throughout the crossover are going to be that scene where Oliver dies. As I've referenced in the past, I think to this and also other moments where a character's supposed to die, it's going to be like the whole, guy that loses his arm in Hot Tub Time Machine, in like all these different events. I think it's played by Crispin Glover. I've mentioned Back to the Future a couple of times in this video. He's in Back to the Future. But like, he's like juggling chainsaws. He gets his arm on a railroad or something like that, and like a train's coming. Various things like that. So I think there's going to be bits where like it looks like Oliver's going to die, and then something completely different will happen, or maybe the monitor might change, like, oh, you're not meant to die here, and then he gets zapped away or something. So there's going to be multiple things like that. I think he's going to, quote unquote, die. Or at least go away in a fashion that definitely deceives people and that people aren't expecting. But I need to add, and I've said this a couple of times, that I have heard that Oliver actually, quote unquote, dies twice in the crossover. So maybe Lucifer being brought into Crisis has something to do with him being brought back that first time. But I'll have to wait and see what happens there. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it to go over from this video. I think I've gone over most of the Arrow stuff that's come out over the past couple of days. But if you enjoyed the video, it would be awesome if you could drop a like and it shows support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on what we went over. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.